Alien girl posted a roommate ad but didn't expect a human applicant though. Scorching twin stars of Proxima Centauri B beat down on Jake Sullivan's neck as he trudged through the bustling Alien marketplace. His Militar Ryra boots kicked up dust with each determined step. The worn leather a reminder of his days in Earth's interstellar marines, now discharged and nearly broke. Jake found himself on this backwater trading post with nothing but his duffel bag sidearm and a stubborn refusal to call home for help. Damn Alliance credit transfer, he muttered, checking his account balance on his wrist device. The numbers hadn't magically increased since he checked 5 minutes ago. 300 credits wouldn't get him far on a planet where humans were still something of a novelty. Jake ran a hand through his short brown hair, his muscular frame drawing curious glances from the various alien species milling about the market. His dark green short-sleeved t-shirt clung to his broad shoulders, and his blue jeans were secured with a worn brown leather belt that matched the thigh holster strapped to his right leg. The M12 pulse pistol nestled there was perfectly legal. He had the permits, but it still made the locals nervous as he rounded a corner. A fluttering piece of paper caught his eye. In this digital age, physical advertisements were rare enough to warrant attention. Jake approached the pole where the flyer was attached and squinted at the alien script. His neural translator kicked in after a moment. Roommate wanted quiet, clean, non-predatory. Species preferred 200 credits per month, no night activities, no carnivores. Contact Lariat. Jake chuckled. Well, he was definitely a carnivore, and technically a predatory species by galactic classification, but 200 credits was a steal and beggars couldn't be choosers. He memorized the address and set off toward the residential district. Following the map on his wrist device, the neighborhood was a curious blend of architectural styles reflecting the diverse alien populations that had settled here. Jake found himself standing before what looked like a sci-fi version of a hobbit dwelling, a rounded structure built partially into a small hill with a curved doorway and windows that glowed with a soft purple light. Here goes nothing, he muttered, approaching the door and giving it 3 firm knocks. The door slid open to reveal a sight that momentarily stunned him. A humanoid alien woman stood in the doorway, her smooth, bright red skin glistening like polished ruby. Long, silvery white hair cascaded down her shoulders, framing a face that was undeniably beautiful despite its alien features. Large, almond-shaped eyes with violet irises widened at the sight of him. She wore a short, form-fitting top and a flowing skirt that accentuated her slim figure and alluring curves. For a moment they just stared at each other, then her eyes flicked to the holster on his thigh, and panic bloomed across her features. Human, she yelped and slammed the door in his face. Jake blinked, momentarily taken aback. Wait, he called through the door. I'm here about the room. I don't know anything. Go away, came the trembling reply. Your kind isn't welcome here. Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair again. Look, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just need a place to stay, and your ad didn't specify no humans. I've got credits. Silence followed. Jake was about to turn away when he heard a commotion from the market district. Turning, he saw a group of burly reptilian aliens harassing a smaller figure, the same red-skinned woman who had just slammed the door in his face. She must have fled through a back exit the Juraxians' notorious local thugs had. Her surrounded. Jake's hand instinctively moved to his holster as he strode toward the confrontation. Come on, pretty thing, one of the Draxians was saying, his scaled face twisted in what passed for a smile. You're late on protection payments again. I told you I don't have it yet, the woman replied, her voice surprisingly steady despite her obvious fear. I need another week. Time's up, another Draxan growled, reaching for her arm. Jake cleared his throat loudly. Gentlemen, he said, his voice carrying the unmistakable edge of someone who'd seen combat. Is there a problem here? The Directions turned, their yellow eyes narrowing at the sight of him. The leader, a particularly nasty looking specimen with a scar running down his snout, sized Jake up. Human, he spat. That this doesn't concern you. Jake smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. See, that's where you're wrong. This lady is my new landlord, which makes this very much my concern. The red-skinned woman's eyes widened in surprise, but she had the good sense not to contradict him. You're outnumbered, human, the Draxian leader hissed. Jake's smile widened as he casually shifted his stance. Am I last I checked, one human marine is worth at least 5 Draxian street thugs, but hey, if you want to test that theory. His hand hovered near his holster, not drawing yet, but making the threat clear. The Draxians exchanged glances, clearly reassessing the situation. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy, and it wasn't for being pushovers. We'll be back, the leader Finally growled, backing away. This isn't over, Lyrie. Looking forward to it. Jake replied cheerfully as the Draxians slunk away. The woman, Lyrie, apparently turned to Jake with a mixture of relief and suspicion. Why did you help me? She asked. Jake shrugged. Seemed like the right thing to do, plus I really do need that room. Lyrie studied him for a long moment, her large violet eyes unreadable. Finally she sighed. Fine, but we need to establish some ground rules. And this doesn't mean I trust you. Fair enough, Jake replied with a grin. I'm Jake Sullivan, by the way, former Earth Interstellar Marine Current Broke Wanderer Larry Tanara, she replied stiffly. And if you eat me in my sleep, I'll come back and haunt you. Jake laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to surprise her. Deal. Rule 1: no weapons in common areas, Larry declared, pointing at Jake's holstered M12 as they entered her dome-shaped dwelling. I don't care if you're licensed to carry that thing across 17 star systems. Jake unclipped the holster from his belt with practiced ease. Fair enough, where can I store it? Lyrie hesitated, clearly not having expected compliance. In your room, I suppose, which is through there. She gestured to a rounded doorway on the right. Rule 2: no meat in the kitchen. I'm herbivorous, and the smell makes me nauseous. Jake raised an eyebrow. I'm an omnivore, not just a carnivore. I need protein. There's a protein synthesizer in your room, she conceded. It can replicate the taste and texture of Earth meats without the actual dead animal part. Jake nodded, mentally calculating how much his food budget would improve without having to pay premium prices for imported Earth proteins. I can work with that. Lyrie led him through the main living area, a surprisingly cozy space with furniture that seemed designed for comfort rather than alien aesthetics. The walls curved organically, giving the impression of being inside a giant seashell, and were painted in soothing shades of blue and purple. Rule 3: Lyrie continued, no bringing companions home. Her violet eyes darted away from his as a deeper crimson flush spread across her already red cheeks. Jake smirked. Not much chance of that. Human females are pretty scarce in this sector. I meant any companions, Lyrie clarified, still not meeting his gaze. Any species not into xenophilia. Got it, Jake replied with a casual shrug, though he couldn't help noticing how her silvery hair caught the light when she moved. For an alien, she was undeniably attractive, with a grace that reminded him of dancers back on Earth. Lur's eyes widened slightly. That's not what I. She stopped herself, taking a deep breath. Rule 4: rent is due on the first day of the lunar cycle, 200 credits, not a day late. About that, Jake said, setting his duffel bag down. Those Draxians mentioned protection money. Is that going to be an ongoing problem? Lyrie's shoulders tensed. It's nothing I can't handle. Didn't like nothing from where I was standing, Jake countered. How much do they want? 50 credits a month, she admitted reluctantly. The local authorities are useless. Half of them are on the Draxians' payroll. Jake did some quick mental math. How about this? I pay you 250 for rent, and you let me handle the Draxians if they come back. Lyrie studied him, her large eyes narrowing suspiciously. Why would you do that? Because I hate bullies, Jake replied simply. And because if they trash this place, I'm out of a home too. A moment of silence stretched between them as Larry considered his offer. Finally, she nodded. Fine, but no killing them. It attracts too much attention. Wouldn't dream of it, Jake said with a grin that suggested otherwise. Larry showed him to his room, a smaller dome adjoining the main living area. It was sparse, but clean, with a bed that looked too short for his human frame. I'll adjust the bed settings, Lyrie said, noticing his appraisal. She approached a panel on the wall and tapped a few symbols. The bed elongated by about a foot. It's programmable matter. You can adjust firmness too. Neat trick, Jake commented, genuinely impressed. It's standard Perrin technology, she replied with a hint of pride. My people are known for adaptive living spaces. Perrin, Jake asked. I don't think I've encountered your species before. They were not common in this sector, Lyrie said evasively. We prefer temperate planets closer to the galactic core. Jake wanted to ask more, but something in her tone suggested the topic was closed. Instead, he asked, any more rules I should know about? Lyrie hesitated, then said, just one more. Don't ask about my past. Their eyes met, and for a moment Jake saw vulnerability beneath her stern exterior. He nodded. Everyone's entitled to their secrets. Relief flickered across her features. Thank you. She turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. The bathroom is through that door. The water controls are probably different from what you're used to. I'll figure it out, Jake assured her. After Lyrie left, Jake unpacked his meager belongings and tested the bed. It conformed perfectly to his body, more comfortable than anything he'd slept on. Since leaving Earth, maybe this arrangement wouldn't be so bad after all. Later that evening, Jake emerged from the bathroom, a towel wrapped around his waist. He'd forgotten to bring clean clothes in with him and now faced the brief journey back to his room. As he crossed the living area, he nearly collided with Lyrie, who froze at the sight of him. Her violet eyes widened, traveling involuntarily over his muscular torso, lingering on the scars that told stories of battle survived. Jake was suddenly acutely aware of how little he was wearing. Sorry, he mumbled, water still dripping from his short hair. Larry seemed to remember herself and quickly averted her gaze. It's fine, I just wasn't expecting. She gestured vaguely at his exposed upper body. Human anatomy shocking? Jake asked with a hint of amusement. Not shocking, Lyrie corrected, her voice slightly higher than normal, just different. Your muscle structure is more defined than pure hand males. Jake couldn't help but grin. Is that a compliment? It's an observation, Larry replied primly, but the deepening crimson of her cheeks told a different story. I should let you get dressed. As she hurried past him, Jake caught a subtle sweet scent that reminded him of cinnamon and something alien, but pleasant. He found himself watching the graceful way she moved, the slight sway of her hips beneath her flowing skirt. This was dangerous territory, he reminded himself. Getting involved with his landlord, an alien landlord at that, was asking for trouble. Yet as he returned to his room, Jake couldn't shake the memory of those violet eyes traveling over his body, or the way her voice had trembled slightly when she spoke. Maybe they both had secrets worth discovering. 3 days passed in relative peace. Jake settled into a routine, exploring the small trading post during the day and returning to the dome-shaped dwelling by nightfall. He'd learned that Lyrie worked remotely as a translator for interstellar merchants, explaining her fluency in multiple languages, including perfect English. The morning of the 4th day, Jake awoke to the sound of breaking glass. He rolled out of bed, grabbing his pulse pistol from beneath his pillow. In one fluid motion, clad only in his sleep shorts, he crept toward his door, listening intently. Last warning, pure, a growly voice snarled. Unmistakably Draxian, the boss wants double now after your human pet embarrassed us. I don't have that kind of money, Lyrie's voice replied, steady. Despite the obvious threat, Jake eased his door open a crack in the main living area. 3 Draxians surrounded Lyrie. The leader, the same scarred brute from the marketplace, held her by the arm. A shattered vise lay on the floor, likely knocked over during their entry. Then maybe we take something else of value, the Draxian hissed, his reptilian eyes traveling over Lur's body in a way that made Jake's blood boil. He'd seen enough. Jake stepped into the room, pistol raised. Gentlemen, you're trespassing. The Draxian spun around the leader, shoving Lyrie behind him. As he faced this new threat, the human, he growled, this time you're outnumbered and we're prepared. As if to emphasize his point, the other 2 Draxians drew wicked-looking viral blades that hummed with energy. Jake's military training kicked in. 3 armed hostiles, 1 civilian to protect confined space. Not ideal, but he'd faced worse odds last chance to walk away. Jake warned, his voice deadly calm. The Draxians exchanged glances, then the leader nodded. The 2 with blades lunged forward. Simultaneously, Jake fired a stun pulse at the one on the left, dropping him instantly, then ducked as the second slashed where his head had been a moment before. He swept the Draxian's leg, sending him crashing into a table, then turned to face the leader, only to freeze at the sight before him. Lyrie stood with her arm extended toward the Draxian leader, who was suspended a foot off the ground, clutching at his throat as if being choked by invisible hands. Her eyes glowed with an intense violet light, and her silvery hair floated around her head as if underwater. You will not return, she said, her voice resonating with power. You will tell your boss that this dwelling is protected. If any harm comes to the human or myself, the consequences will be severe. She released her hold and the Draxian leader collapsed, gasping for breath. He scrambled backward, terror evident in his yellow eyes, which he hissed, the boss will hear of this. I'm counting on it, Lyrie replied coldly. The leader grabbed his stunned companion, while the other picked himself up from the broken table. They retreated hastily, leaving the door open in their panic. As soon as they were gone, the glow faded from Lur's eyes. She swayed slightly, and Jake rushed forward to steady her. You okay? He asked, one arm around her waist while his other hand still held the pistol. Lyrie leaned against him, her body warm against his bare chest. Yes. Telekinesis takes a lot of energy. That was telekinesis, Jake asked, impressed. Handy trick. It's why I didn't want a roommate, she admitted, looking up at him. Their faces were inches apart. Pyons are hunted for our abilities. Some want to study us, others want to use us. As weapons, Jake holstered his pistol. At the small of his back, why tell me now? Because you were ready to fight. 3 armed Draxians to protect me, she said softly. No one's ever done that before. Their eyes locked and Jake became acutely aware of her body pressed against his, the subtle scent of her hair. The way her breath quickened his hand at her waist, felt the warmth of her skin through the thin fabric of her sleep. Shirt Jake, she whispered, her voice taking on a husky quality that sent a jolt through him. On my world, saving someone's life creates a bond. What kind of bond? He asked, his voice equally low in answer. Lyrie rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his. The sensation was electric, her lips softer than he expected, warmer too. Jake responded instinctively, pulling her closer, as the kiss deepened. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Lyrie's violet eyes were wide with wonder. Humans kiss, she murmured. I've read about it but never kissed a human before, Jake finished. With a small smile. Never kissed anyone before, she corrected, a deeper crimson flush spreading across her cheeks. Appearance made for life. Physical intimacy is significant. Jake immediately took a step back, respecting the cultural revelation. I didn't know. I wouldn't want to. Lyrie placed a finger on his lips, silencing him. I initiated it, she reminded him, and I don't regret it. The intensity in her eyes made Jake's heart race. There was something profoundly moving about being someone's first kiss, especially when that someone belonged to a species that viewed physical intimacy as a lifelong commitment. We should probably talk about this, Jake suggested, though his body was urging him toward very different activities. Lyrie nodded, but didn't move away. Yes, we should, but first. She kissed him again, more confidently. This time Jake's arms encircled her waist, lifting her slightly as their bodies pressed together. Whatever barriers had existed between human and Purin seemed to melt away in the heat of their embrace. Later, they would indeed talk about cultural differences, about expectations, about the dangers they now faced together. But for now, in the aftermath of danger, they found comfort in each other's arms, two beings from different worlds, discovering that some languages are universal. The morning after their first kiss, Jake and Larry sat at the kitchen table, hands entwined, discussing what their new relationship meant. The cultural differences were significant. Parents made it for life, forming telepathic bonds that grew stronger with physical intimacy. For humans, relationships were more fluid, though Jake assured her he wasn't taking this lightly. I've never felt this way about anyone, he admitted, tracing patterns on her crimson palm with his thumb, human or otherwise. Lyrie smiled, her violet eyes soft with affection. The connection is already forming. I can sense your emotions faintly, but they're there. Jake was about to respond when a sharp 3-tone chime echoed through the dwelling. Lyrie froze, her eyes widening. What is it? Jake asked, instantly alert. Ah, per an elder, she whispered, looking both awed and terrified. That's the formal announcement of presence. No one from my world should know I'm here. They moved to the door together. When Larry opened it, they found a tall, dignified Purin male standing outside. His skin was a deeper burgundy than Larry's, and his silver hair was elaborately braided. He wore flowing robes of midnight blue, adorned with symbols that glowed faintly. Elder Kieran, Lyrie gasped, immediately bowing her head in respect. The elder's gaze moved from Lyrie to Jake, his expression unreadable. Lur Tenara, daughter of House Valen, your telekinetic discharge was felt across 3 systems. Jake stepped slightly forward, positioning himself protectively beside Lyrie. She was defending herself. Elder Kieran's eyes a striking amber rather than violet, assessed Jake with penetrating intensity. A human defender, interesting. He turned back to Lyrie. May I enter? What we must discuss should not be overheard once inside. Elder Karen declined refreshments and came straight to the point. The hunters have detected your presence. They will arrive within days. The hunters, Jake asked. Mercenaries who capture Pyons for various buyers, Lyrie explained, her voice tight with fear. Research facilities, private collectors, military organizations. Your display of power was considerable. Elder Karen continued. It has drawn attention from the highest biders. I came to offer a sanctuary in our hidden colony. Hope bloomed on Larry's face. I thought all the colonies were destroyed in the purge. Not all, the elder replied with a small smile, but sanctuary comes with conditions. His amber gaze fixed on Jake. The human cannot accompany you unless he proves himself worthy. Jake straightened. What do I need to do? 3 trials, Oscar. Elder Kieran stated, to test your commitment, your honor, and your compatibility with Our ways Lyrie gripped Jake's hand elder with respect Jake has already proven. Himself he defended me against attackers, without knowing my abilities admirable. The elder conceded but insufficient the bond you begun to form is sacred among our people. If he is to join our sanctuary, he must demonstrate that he understands what it means to be bonded. To a Purinin Jake nodded firmly. I'll take your trials. The first begins now. Elder Kieran announced. He reached into his robes and produced a small glowing orb that he placed on the table. This is a memory sphere. It will extract your most painful memory and display it for all to see. Honesty and vulnerability are the foundation of Piran bonding. Jake hesitated, his military past filled with moments he'd rather forget, but he looked at Lyrie, saw the hope and fear mingled her eyes, and knew he had no choice. Do it, he said. The sphere pulsed, and suddenly the room was filled with a holographic projection. Jake younger, and in full combat gear, carrying a wounded comrade through a burning settlement, alien civilians fleeing around them, a military commander ordering them to fall back to leave the civilians to their fate. Jake refusing, helping not just his comrade but several civilians to safety, directly disobeying orders. The memory shifted to a military tribunal. Jake being stripped of his rank for insubordination despite saving lives. His bitter words to the tribunal: if humanity means abandoning those who can't defend themselves, then I want no part of it. The sphere dimmed and the projection faded. Elder Kieran's expression had softened. You defied your own kind to protect others, he observed. Interesting, it's what any decent person would do. Jake replied. No, the elder corrected, it is what a Purhin would do. Our first principle is that power creates obligation. Those with strength must protect those without. He inclined his head. You passed the first trial. Relief washed over Lur's face. She moved to Jake's side, her fingers intertwining with his. The touch sent a warm current through his body, more intense than before. The bond grows. Elder Karen noted with approval. The second trial will test your physical compatibility. Jake raised an eyebrow. Mean pure hand bonding is not just emotional or mental but physical. The elder explained. You must demonstrate that your species can harmonize. Lur's skin darkened with embarrassment. Elder, that's private, not among our people. Karen replied calmly. The community witnesses the bonding to strengthen the connection. Jake cleared his throat. You mean I'm not sure I'm comfortable with an audience? The elder chuckled. A surprisingly warm sound. The trial doesn't require witnesses, merely proof of compatibility. You have until morning. He stood, moving toward the door. I return at dawn for the third trial, assuming you pass the second. After the elder departed, Jake turned to Lyrie, whose crimson skin was flushed even darker. Is he suggesting what I think he's suggesting? Yes, she whispered. Pure hand bonding is complete physical union. Creates telepathic bridges that cannot be broken. Jake gently tilted her chin up. And is that what you want, to be bonded to a human for life? Lur's violet eyes met his unwavering. I've never been more certain of anything. As night fell, they retreated to Lur's room. What followed was a discovery of differences and similarities, of alien and familiar sensations, of two beings from different worlds finding a common language in touch and whispered words. Their union transcended the physical, creating something new and profound. Between them, a bridge across the stars. Jake awoke to the gentle caress of Lur's fingers tracing the scars on his chest. Dawn light filtered through the translucent dome ceiling, casting a rosy glow over her crimson skin. Her silver hair spilled across the pillow like liquid moonlight. Good morning, he murmured, pulling her closer. Lyrie nestled against him, her body fitting perfectly against his. I can feel you, she whispered with wonder, not just physically. I can sense your emotions, your thoughts at the edges of my mind. Jake concentrated, and to his surprise he could feel it too, a warm presence in his consciousness that was distinctly leery. Is this the bond you mentioned? She nodded against his chest. It's stronger than I expected. Usually it takes pair and couples months to develop this level of connection. Maybe humans have some advantages, Jake suggested with a playful smile, kissing the top of her head. Many advantages, Livery agreed, her violet eyes twinkling with mischief. As she tilted her face up to meet his lips, their morning embrace was interrupted by the now familiar three-tone chime. Elder Kieran had returned for the third trial. They dressed quickly, exchanging nervous glances. Through their newfound connection, Jake could sense